Welcome to 7.1a. We're talking about the cell theory today, but we also want to talk about the history behind it and how it's going to affect us for the rest of our biology class. So without further ado, let's get to the real meat of the lesson. It all starts out with this guy. This is Robert Hooke. In 1665, he was an English scientist, and he used a microscope to examine a thin slice of cork, just like this guy right here. He described it as consisting of lots of these little box shapes. We can see these sort of little rectangle shapes here. And they reminded him of the little cubicles or cells that monks lived in, so he named them cells. He also was the first one to see, they can also be round in shape. And he was wondering about why they might be that, but he never actually figured it out. So we can fast forward a few years to this guy, Antony van Leeuwenhoek. He was a merchant and a craftsman that specialized in making glasses. He was a Dutch guy. He wasn't the first to make a microscope. So he would sell glasses a lot like this pair right here. But he was the first, these are some of his actual drawings right here, of what he called animalcules. He found these little animals that were swimming around in water. He used this little contraption that he built himself to do it. Okay, there are about 100 of these we think that he made back in the 1600s, but there's only currently around 7 to 10 in existence today. So what you would do is he made this little lens right here. He made this little lens, and what you would do is you put a little drop of water on the head of this needle, and you would look at the drop of water through the lens and hold it up to your eye just like this, and so you'd be able to see, and it would magnify it. And here's what it kind of looks like if you look through that hole. See, you can see these little individual cells floating around in this water. So from these two guys, we get this basic idea today. A cell is the basic structural and functional unit of all living organisms. Whether I have these cells right here, or these are epithelial cells taken from a cheek swab. So like you take a toothpick and you rub it up against your cheek, you'll get some cells on it. Like these ones. They're the basic structural unit. So we're going to be talking a lot about cells this year. The prefix cyto is what we're going to be looking for. And whenever it says something, cyto something, we mean cell. That's a giveaway for it. So like for instance, if we talk about cytology, we remember before that cyto, that's the prefix that means cell. And ology, that's a suffix, a Latin suffix that means study of. So cytology is the study of cells. So we kicked this idea around of cells for a couple hundred years until we get this guy, Matthias Schleiden. He concluded that all plants were made of these cells. He was a botanist, pretty famous botanist for his time. And so he looked at cells just like this one under the microscope. And he discovered that every single plant that he looked at were all made of cells at some level. Okay, likewise, the following year, we get Theodor Schwann. Theodor Schwann concluded that all animals were made of cells. This guy was a doctor and was interested in studying disease, just like the next guy we're going to talk about. Lastly, we get this guy, Rudolf Virchow. Rudolf Virchow was a physician that was studying how disease affects living things. During his research, he hypothesized that cells come only from other cells. So here's a modern computer view of two cells dividing from one cell right here. He was interested in viruses and how diseases spread, which may or may not be pertinent for today. So, based on all of these 5 people's ideas, we get the cell theory. The cell theory is that number 1, all living things are made of cells. Number 2, cells are the basic unit of structure and organization of all living organisms. And number 3, cells only come from previously existing cells, with cells passing copies of their genetic material onto their daughter cells. Okay, number 1, if we dive into each of these 3, just to reiterate them, all living things are made of cells. Whether it's this cardiac, that means heart, whether it's this heart muscle over here on the left, this is from a sheep's heart, I believe, or we have these single-celled paramecium over here on the right, all living things are made of cells. Whether they're made of many cells and they help make up a tissue, or they're single-celled organisms, either way, they're made of cells. Number 2, cells are the most basic unit of organization. So on the left here, I have an artist's recreation of what red blood cells look like. And on the right, I have plant tissues from the peel of a leaf. And in both of those organizations, cells are the basic unit. I can't get down any lower to a cell or from a cell and still be alive. Cells are the smallest things that are still alive. Cells also only come from previously existing cells, with cells passing copies of their genetic material onto their daughter cells. So once upon a time, on the left here, I have an embryo. This is from a chicken embryo. You can see that one of these started out as a cell and it's starting to replicate. Just like chickens, every single one of us all started out as singular cells. And then we divided and divided and divided based on our cell shape and those sorts of things. They take on new jobs. Okay, I like computer generated images. So here is one looking at a cell. Actually, excuse me, that's an electron microscope picture of cytokinesis. So cytokinesis, when the cells are actually splitting apart. We'll talk about that when we go to talk about mitosis in a little while. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon.